The Alternative Blend is made possible through the generous underwriting support of the Green Solution.
Welcome back to The Alternative Blend. My next guest is a certified nutritionist. She is also an entrepreneur since the age of 22. She owns 2 companies, one of which is a nonprofit that focuses on educating clinicians about cannabis. I'd like to welcome her to the program. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you very much.
You know what, your friends call you Muffy. Can I call you Muffy?
Yes, you may.
I just love that. It's just very endearing. I love that. So we have a limited amount of time, and you're here today to help us through a couple of things, myths and facts. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about your background and about the organization that you're the director of.
So I'm a certified nutritional consultant. I own a medical marijuana evaluation clinic that does medical cannabis evaluations and helps people join the Colorado Medical Marijuana Registry. Around 2013, the Sanjay Gupta show Weeds came out on CNN.
Yes.
And we started getting all these calls from around the country from people who wanted to come and bring their children to Colorado to see if they qualified for medical marijuana. And then we started getting calls from hospitals saying, all of these parents are calling us wanting to bring their children here for treatment, and we know nothing about marijuana.
Wow.
So we started speaking in hospitals about medical marijuana, what we did in clinic and how it worked. And from there, we wound up starting a nonprofit, Cannabis Clinicians Colorado, to train doctors, because what we discovered was that they knew nothing, that your average teenager actually knows more than your average doctor about marijuana.
Well, you know what I discovered on another program, and you and I talked about it before the show, is most doctors don't even know that within our system, we have a cannabinoid system.
That's
within
correct.
our bodies. Most of them don't know that.
It is not taught in medical schools.
It's amazing.
Still to this day. So when you look at the statistics, they're actually pretty shocking. There are 20,000 active physicians in the state of Colorado, yet fewer than 5% write medical marijuana recommendations.
Wow.
In fact, the number right now is closer to 3%. There are only about 600 or 700 doctors registered to write those recommendations in Colorado right now. But half of Colorado adults have tried marijuana in the last 5 years. So what we have is a situation where 95% of doctors know nothing about something half their patients have already used.
Wow, that's incredible. And they really need guidance. Some people really need the guidance. Those are really seeking medical or health benefits from cannabis.
That's correct. So what we do now is provide what's called continuing medical education credits in cannabis at our Marijuana for Medical Professionals conference every other year.
And are they certified? It's certified?
Oh, absolutely.
So a doctor can use that as their extended education credits?
Absolutely. They can use it as their AMA PRA Category 1 continuing medical education credits is what we provide every other year. We've provided over 50 so far in Colorado, over 50 hours.
That's fantastic. Only because we're running out of time already. I'd like if you could help us. I know one of the things that you do, she has a really great pamphlet here from her organization puts out. I suppose I could find it on your website.
It's not on the website because it's actually a fundraiser. So
sorry about that.
That's okay, but we'll get it on the website. No problem.
I'm sorry. I just gave her a task. But it's really wonderful because it's for those of us who don't know a lot. And one of the things this little pamphlet tackles is myths and facts. So let's get into it. Take us through 5 basic myths and facts.
So first of all, marijuana is a highly addictive narcotic is one of the main myths and facts that we encounter.
Hear it all the time.
You got it. When in fact, marijuana is not a narcotic at all. As you mentioned, it has its own receptor system, the endocannabinoid system in the body. It doesn't bind to narcotic receptors. In fact, it's a non-competitive inhibitor at narcotic receptor sites.
Then why is it a Schedule I drug?
Well, that's a whole different topic that gets
We'll hold
into
that for another
politics
show.
and Richard Nixon and Harry Anslinger, and
Yes.
yeah, that's another show in itself. Now, the addictive potential as defined by the National Institutes for Drug Abuse for marijuana is about 6%, which is also, ironically, the number for the most commonly used psychoactive substance in the world, which is coffee. Coffee is also about 6% addictive, and so is marijuana.
No kidding. Yet it's not a Schedule I drug, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, so take us through another. What's another?
Marijuana is a gateway drug.
Hear
This
it
is
all the
another
time.
big myth that
Yes.
still is out there and still a very persistent myth. And really what we found is that it's an exit drug. Prior to 1937, marijuana was used to help people recover from alcohol addiction. When prohibition of alcohol was out there, you could look at a medical textbook and it would say that cannabis was the number 3 recommended substance in the country as a medicine, and it was the number 1 thing recommended for reduction of alcohol addiction, but you had to be very careful making those preparations of cannabis because alcohol was a dangerous poison.
Ironically. Okay, so what else we have?
There isn't any research on marijuana. How many times have you heard that?
I have to tell you, we had a whole segment about that with someone who came on and told me that is absolutely not true. But that's predominantly understood by most of us, that there's just not enough research.
And that is absolutely not true. So if you go to PubMed.gov right now and put in the words cannabis, cannabinoid, and marijuana, over 40,000 medical research papers will come up. It is one of the most studied plants on the planet. Here's the problem, though. Cannabis just doesn't fit into the traditional evidence-based medicine model, which says that we have a single chemical compound that can be synthesized in a lab that has a marked effect at a measured dose on a 150-pound man. Cannabis just throws all of that out the window. We have no idea when we give the same 3 people cannabis who's going to respond. There is no known correlation at this point between any given dose of marijuana and any given blood level in a person or effect in a person. So the medicine just doesn't fit into the standard model, and that's why they say there's no research. There's actually quite a bit of research.
It's just the kind of research that it is.
You got it.
And there's an awful lot of anecdotal.
Well, and that's another thing that we tend to ignore. When you look at evidence-based medicine and the way it was initially conceived in 1991, it's a 3-legged stool. And those 3 legs are the clinical research, the experience of the physician, and the patient preference. At this point in time, we've sawed off 2 of those legs. We don't seem to care about the patient's preference anymore. We don't seem to care about the physician's experience.
Right.
All we seem to care about is that clinical research, and that stool's going to fall. It's not going to stand up very well.
Okay, what else we have? We've got about 3 minutes left.
Marijuana is just for stoner kids who want to get high. This is the biggest myth of all, okay? When you look at the statistics from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, the average age of a Colorado medical marijuana patient is 46 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Our clinic actually skews a little higher. It's 51 years old. So it's not a bunch of kids who fell off their skateboard last week. It's your grandma who's had 10 years of chronic pain, and we are the doctor of last resort.
But yet there's still so much of a stigma. There's still so much of a stigma, isn't there?
It seems to be getting better. We really are doing better on the stigma. And I think it's because of the older people who are coming in to use marijuana. And we do a lot of lectures at senior centers and places like that to teach people about proper use and safe use and how you can use this without being high. Most of our patients don't want to be high. They want to be better. And so we give them tips and tricks and talk about different routes of administration so that they can.
Do you have one more?
I have one more. And this is the biggest one of all that we're hearing right now, because right now there's kind of a CBD fad going on.
There is. CBD's everywhere. It's in everything.
So the myth is that CBD is a medicine and THC is just for getting high. And I'm here to tell you that THC is a valuable and effective medicine in its own right. In fact, the CBD will work better if you add in a little THC. It's called the entourage effect. And that's a term that was made by Raphael Mechoulam, who is the still living scientist in Israel, who first discovered THC back in the 1970s.
Oh my goodness. And so the idea that cannabis with a little THC is like a little bit of a booster. Somehow it ignites the cannabinoid system within?
That's correct. You can use less CBD if you add in a little THC, and you'll get better results. So what we typically do is we'll start someone who's very afraid of THC on CBD alone, and we start with about 1 milligram per 10 pounds of body weight, and we start at night because the side effects can be drowsiness. But half of people aren't going to feel that dose of CBD at all. So we go up a little bit in baby steps. If you feel drowsy, if you feel lethargic, if you feel emotionally flat, you've got too much CBD. And that's where you bring it back down and start adding in THC until you get the balance that's right for you. And everyone's different on what that is.
And without, say, a nutritionist like yourself or a doctor or some clinician helping you through that, it's really a bit of a guessing game for those who just walk in off the street and buy it at a dispensary.
It is a guessing game. We don't have biomarkers yet. And biomarkers would mean that you could come in and I could do a blood draw, or you could pee in a cup and I could say, oh, look at this. You should take this much of that and that much of this. We don't have that at this point in time. And we might never have that. And you know what? That's okay. One of the things that we have to go through when we train physicians is, what if it's all right that we don't have a dose for that? What if it's okay if the dose is variable? And the reason for that is no one has ever died of a marijuana overdose in the history of mankind, and the safety of this medicine cannot be overstated.
Well, that is something that we haven't underscored enough on this program, that, you know, I've read studies and research that says that very thing, that unlike alcohol, unlike opioids,
unlike pills,
unlike a lot of things that are dispensed and distributed legally from our pharmacies, no one's ever died from an overdose of cannabis.
Take too many opioids, you die. Take too much Tylenol, you die.
Yeah.
Take too much marijuana, you have a bad afternoon, okay? It might be a very bad afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, you might vomit. You might have difficulty standing or walking. You might be dizzy. You might have difficulty remaining conscious. But
You're not
the
gonna
next
die.
morning, you will wake up simply embarrassed and not dead.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Let me just say, because we're out of time, I want to, just a couple things. One, tell me where people can find out more information about your organization, your website.
So our organization is Cannabis Clinicians Colorado, and we are COSCC.org. And that's our website. And there's a site assets there where we have links to by condition databases. If you want to look up about more things about what you're trying to treat with cannabis there and the way it works, there's a bunch of scientific papers and things like that on the site.
And your organization also holds panels once a month. You have some coming up. What's coming up?
Well, what we have is our monthly meeting for our members, and we do invite members of the general public to attend as well if they want, but we are primarily a physicians and clinicians group, and that's okay.
But
It's
a
for
layperson can come.
anyone working with medical marijuana patients is invited to attend.
Okay.
And next month's lecture in May is Dr. Martha Rosenthal, and she's from Florida Gulf Coast University, and she's lecturing on cannabis and sexuality.
Oh, I have to tell you, you're going to have to help me get her on as a guest. That's an incredibly wonderful topic to explore.
It is. It's a really interesting topic. She's an amazing researcher down there in Florida, and we're happy to have her. So I would be happy to invite you to attend.
I appreciate that. Okay, so we're out of time, but I'd like to invite you back for our entire show. And I'd like you to take us through different ways to use cannabis. And we hear about edibles and topicals and vaping and smoking. And will you help us understand how all that is a little bit different about how it's used?
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate
We can
it.
go through all those things.
I appreciate it. We come back soon, and appreciate you coming in today.
The Alternative Blend is made possible through the generous underwriting support of the Green Solution.